Hey, Ansley, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. I just did your intro, but can you just tell me in your own words who you are and what you do and what you're all about?
Sure, yeah. I am a writer, speaker, Enneagram coach, and podcast host of Wild Confidence Podcast. And I help young adults discover or rediscover their identity in Christ through mentoring, online courses, which are coming out soon, coaching, and all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So, one of the things that I always like to ask my guests is like, how did you get started in this world of like online coaching, and how did you figure out your niche of Enneagram and like helping young adults find their identity in Christ?
Yeah, so it kind of stems back to, I guess I was in college, or I know I was in college. It was like, I think junior year-ish, maybe junior into senior year. I was in an abusive relationship that was just crazy. And it totally stole my identity from me. Like it was just crushing. And it was crazy because after I had gone through that, I was racing towards the Lord, trying to find restoration, trying to figure out who I was again, or restart that process of like figuring out, who I am as a person. And then once I realized that I was kind of in the thick of the process, I realized that other women were just like finding me or going through the same thing. And we were all just kind of collecting. And I think that's where I started to become a coach or mentor figure is by these women. I believe that the Lord placed them in my life to walk alongside them in the healing process. And from there, it just turned into identity work and relationship, everything, all relationships. And it kind of just grew from there. And it constantly just expanding and meeting new people and understanding new stories of identity and uh, self discovery, which is really cool. And that was how the Enneagram kind of played into it for me. That was one of the key factors in not only understanding who I am and why I'm motivated, but accepting and loving who the Lord made me as. And so I started kind of sharing that with people and being like, look, this is a really cool tool that I used. Try it out, see if you like it. And then from there, I became a coach and just kept going after it and kept being obsessed with it.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So I relate a lot to your story. I was in an abusive relationship. Super crazy story. We can compare notes later.
Yeah.
But I find that our stories shape us into like kind of like it's just kind of like we're thrown into kind of like what we're meant to be without even really realizing it.
Hmm.
Um, and before I go any further, what is your Enneagram number?
Yeah, I am a two wing three.
Two wing three. Okay.
Yeah,
So what like can you explain so if someone's listening to the podcast right now and they have no idea what the Enneagram is, can you just
sure.
kind of briefly explain what it is?
Yeah. So the Enneagram is essentially a map or GPS of your personality and the motivations behind why you do the things that you do. So it's not based on behaviors, strengths, and weaknesses like most personality types are. It's based on the motivation behind your actions. So, what was your type? What's your type?
I think I'm a three.
Okay.
I kind of like go. I think I'm like the whole heart triad, basically. Like, because I kind of
Okay.
go between the three and the two and the four, and so I'm
Sure.
still the jury's still out, but I relate most to the three.
Okay. So, for the sake of illustration, let's say you are a three, I as a two, and go to a birthday party. We bring the same exact gift. Well, the Enneagram is going to explain the motivation behind us bringing that gift. The behavior is the same, but it's the motivation behind it. Why did you choose that gift? Why did I choose that gift? That's what's going to be different. The gift can be the
Mm,
same, but the reasoning behind it can be different. So, that's kind of the general idea of what the Enneagram is. And I think it's an incredibly helpful tool. There's plenty of tools out there. I mean, Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders, all of those are great. The Enneagram just happens to be the one that worked the best for me.
yeah, I love that. I think I became obsessed with Enneagram like maybe a year ago or a year or maybe 2 years ago whenever I started in my network marketing company because it was like a big tool that my mentor used to like get to know all of her new team members and
Yeah,
to figure out how to not how to handle people but just like how to approach
sure.
conversations, how to do all these things. So I became obsessed with it and I was like, what number am I took all these quizzes. It said that I was a 2. And I was just like, I'm a 2, I'm a helper. And then like I finally like came into it that I was a 3. I was like, I really think I'm a 3.
Hmm.
And my mentor was like, really, Jordan, really? Like she was like waiting for me to have that realization. So for any of you who don't know, like the 3 is the achiever or the performer, right?
Hmm.
So the gist of what I've gotten from the 3 is like very ambitious, kind of like a chameleon, can be friends with anybody. Um, and what's like the Achilles heel of a 3?
The core like desire, is that what you mean? Or
No, like the not I hate to say like good and bad, but like what are like the downfalls of being a 3? Like workaholic and things like that.
yeah, definitely workaholic. They tend to lose their identity in other people. So like they're the chameleon, is what we kind of call them. Like they can become whoever they're in front of.
Yes, and I think that God has actually put you in my life today because this is something that I'm struggling with so much. I'm actually going to therapy for it. So whenever I saw identity on your like topics that you wanted to discuss, I was like, yes. And I was hoping that it was like going to be the same thing
Yeah,
as what I was thinking because identity can kind of go in a bunch of different ways.
sure.
Um, so I think that identity for me, and maybe this will help someone that's listening, is as a 3, I am being in an abusive relationship, like you said, like I had put my identity so much in other people, and that showed up as people pleasing too. So I think
Hmm.
I have that 3 wing too going on. And I've just done that for so long that I have lost who I am. And it's like, what does Jordan want? What do I want to do with my life? How do I want to show up? So I think that's beautiful that you have like made a career out of helping people find their identity.
Yeah, and threes especially, once they find it, they're kind of like they're almost like heroes, like the ideal hero of the movie, I guess. So it's really neat to kind of see a three step into it. And you were talking about kind of that heart and going back and forth between 2, 3, and 4. And that kind of sounds the most like a 3 because you can pull from those wings and show the
Mm-hmm.
behaviors of each of those types. So it definitely wouldn't be off base for that to be the case.
So for anyone listening, can you kind of explain what a 2 is and what a 4 is for
Yeah, the
people?
2 is going to be the helper. They're very caring, interpersonal. And then the 4 is going to be that more creative. They're the individualist. So they're typically more sensitive, but they're the more on the creative side for sure.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Um, is it, what do you say about trying to type people in your head?
I don't typically encourage it because it's based on behavior. Um, that's
Mm,
that's just what we do. If we're trying to type
right.
someone, we naturally are like, oh, you're a worst case scenario thinker. You have I don't know, a safety box in your car. You must be a 6, but
Yeah.
not necessarily. It's really important for someone to kind of do the work on their own and figure it out. And there's nothing more frustrating than being mistyped by other people because then you feel
Mm,
like, oh, well, other people see me as this, but I'm really this. Are they not seeing me for who I really am? So
Yeah,
it can
that's
be
a good
pretty tricky.
point. Yeah, see, because like like when I became obsessed with it, I like immediately started to type everybody in my head, like my
Yeah.
mom, my dad, like my husband, all these things, and I immediately could type my mom, like, and I didn't tell her, and I just like sent her the quiz. I like sent her like the. Have you read the book The Road Back to You? So you know how like in the first page, like it has like all these statements, and it's like what a six or what a five would say. And so I sent a picture of that to her, and she's like, yes, like I identify with all 20 of those. And it was the six. And so it has helped me so much to know that she is a six and how I approach her, because I catch myself saying, like, don't worry about it. And that just like, you can't say that to a six
Mm-hmm.
because that's all they're going to do is worry about it.
Right. Right.
And she's a
Exactly.
mama bear. And, so it has helped me a ton. But then I get frustrated because like I still don't know what number my husband is. And because he like refuses to participate, he's like, I'm not gonna be put in the box. Like, so, and he just gets so annoyed with me. But I'm like, I need to know what you are so I can know how to handle you.
Yeah,
And I don't
for
think that's
sure.
the right way to do it.
Well, I mean, and typing in your head is one thing for sure, but kind of saying it out loud is just another, it's just more tricky to do it that way. But the people who are typically the most resistant are the 5, 8, and 6 types. And Ian Morgan Cron, who actually is one of the writers of The Road Back to You, always says that the Enneagram doesn't put you in a box. It shows you the box that you're already in and how to grow out of it. The whole point of the Enneagram is self-awareness towards growth. So we don't want you to stay stuck in your type. We don't want you to feel like you're a 3 and you can never change and you can never, go to your growth type or, something like that. Like the whole point is to grow out of the Enneagram, so to speak, and say, yeah, this is my type, but I'm actually really healthy in this type, which is an amazing journey that I've been on.
Yeah, and that was another weird thing. Was like learning how each number goes to like a different number in strength and then like a different number in weakness. And that's why sometimes like taking a quiz can you'll get a mistype because you're
Yeah.
not in a healthy state. So you'll type as a number. So you kind of have to learn how they all go together.
Yeah.
Which is super confusing.
Tests are only 75% accurate. So if someone's just starting out in the Enneagram, I'll probably say, like, sure, you can take an assessment and then take those top 3 types and research them before you accept whatever the first one spits out. But if they kind of like, yeah, I kind of know all the types, then I say, okay, don't worry about taking a test. Like, just decide for yourself. Because
Yeah.
ultimately you have to do that. It's funny because people are like, okay, so what type am I? And I'm like, you tell me. You have to tell me.
And they're like, no, you tell me what I
Yeah.
am.
And typically
I
I
love
can
that.
I can guess after some conversation or some questions that I might ask, but I still say these are my top few guesses. Go research and get back to me.
Oh my goodness. And I think that's the hardest thing is because so many of us, like in the entrepreneurial world and just as women, we just like we get like decision fatigue and we just want somebody to tell us what we are so we can just move on and like, okay, I'm a 3, like this is who I am. And it's just not that simple.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's so frustrating. I wanted to ask you, what kind of things are so like you say that you help young adults help find their identity in Christ. What are some of the struggles that people are going through whenever they come to you and need help with this identity and finding it?
Yeah, typically it's a general distance from the Lord. Like they just can't connect with the Lord. It's like, I don't know, I don't hear from him. I'm tired of reading my Bible, that kind of thing. Other than that, a lot of relationship stuff, a lot of unhealthy or toxic relationships for sure. And I'm trying to think what else. There's a far and wide. Identity can be lost in so many things, whether it's lost in work or whether it's lost in friendships or relationships or literally anything, sports. Um, so I've kind of heard from people in all of those areas, but definitely the main one is feeling disconnected from the Lord or in a relationship that they shouldn't be in. Or
Yes.
they just got
So,
out of a relationship.
and they're trying to find their way back. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that one. Of course, they are like coming to mow my grass right now. Can you hear it?
No,
Okay, I was like, dude, really?
I know that
And
happens to
they,
me every time.
oh, I was like, why? But so what I wanted to ask next is like, the grass cutting threw me off. Oh, relationships. So whenever someone is trying to like find themselves again out of this relationship, what would be their first step into like getting back on track?
Yeah. So I kind of tell them the first thing to do is reintroduce yourself to the Lord. Like, sorry,
You're good.
literally go into the throne room, stick out your hand, and introduce yourself to the Lord. But to understand what going into the throne room means, I have them kind of do a whole visualization thing. We go through a whole process of like, okay, what does it look like? What is around you? What does it smell like? I mean, all the things. So you can really place yourself there and understand the holy ground, if you will, that you would be walking into. And it's it's really encouraging to kind of see someone go through this process, but then reintroduce yourself to the Lord. Literally ask, who am I? Why am I here? Like, why did you make me? What is my purpose? And starting that communication process in a more visual way that doesn't feel like he's stuck within the pages of the Bible, because he's not. And the Bible is a living, breathing word. So it's not stagnant or stuck anyway. Um, but that's definitely the first step. And that's probably the most foundational, in my opinion, because it's something that I ask people to return to almost every day.
Man, but like I just got goosebumps. Like, oh, that is so powerful. So what like is so you said that that's like an ongoing process, like do that every day and like continue. I've definitely found like felt this way before. Like, I think there's definitely seasons of like kind of going back and forth or like getting distracted and then coming back to it. Um, when I say it, I mean like God and church. And
Yeah.
especially like if you grew up that way, like you keep
Yeah.
getting this pull back to like where you're meant to be. For me, the struggle was like I moved and I just couldn't find a church that I connected with for the longest time. And even though like my husband was a member of a church and we went there for like a couple of years together, it just still didn't feel like home. And not that, that has to be the number one thing, but whenever we found the church that we're going to now, um, whenever you walk in, you just get like the Holy Spirit washes over you and you just kind of get
Mhm.
like this. And the only way I could say it is like full body chills, like almost like move you to tears, if not like lots of tears. Like it just like
Yeah.
consumes you. And but I still like you kind of get in this monotonous like okay Sunday go to church go to
Yeah.
work and then you just kind of get out of it again and then you have to so I love how you say like continue to do this every single day. Like I just got goosebumps whenever you told me to do like I'm gonna go do this. Like I'm gonna go do this. So what would be like the next step after you like reintroduce yourself? Do you just like hear what he has to say, like the answers to the questions?
Definitely. And that takes some practice. It takes some practice to kind of understand whether it's his voice or your voice or the
Mm,
enemy's voice, because there's always there's always the enemy that's trying to attack this growth or you. I mean, it literally says that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy in the Bible. So whenever you think about just any type of growth or movement forward in the kingdom, you have to expect the attack. So you have to always be on the offensive, or you have to be ready and armored up for the attack. So I always, it's kind of funny. Like when I take someone through online mentoring, I'm like, okay, if this is a relationship thing, I'm telling you right now, before the end of our time together, your ex is going to call you. Like he's coming back. I'm telling you, like that's what's going to happen because that is how the enemy works. That's the lowest hanging fruit. That's where you're the weakest in this moment. That's why you probably came to me. And so that's how the enemy is going to work. When I tell you it has happened every single time. And I'm like, it's the enemy is logical. When you think about it, his attacks aren't random or confusing. They are so logical that that's why it sounds like your own thoughts or your own feelings or your own situations, right? If you just got out of a toxic relationship, you're going to pursue healing. What's he going to do? Try and pull you back into a toxic relationship. Like it's just logic. If you're finding your identity in work, what is he going to do? Maybe he'll promote you. Maybe he'll move you closer to the goal. Maybe, because what's that going to do? Encourage workaholism. It's like, it's logical. So whenever you think about like just the things that he's going to do while you're trying to move forward in your identity and kingdom work, you've got to recognize those things about him, but then also recognize that the Lord's voice is going to be never going to be critical. It's never going to be shame filled. It's never going to be, you're never going to feel less than whenever you communicate with the Lord because he loves you and he doesn't think those things about you. He doesn't think what you think about you. So keeping those things in mind is really crucial when it comes to trying to hear his voice, trying to understand what he's saying, and knowing that there's no shame in the throne room. So whenever you go in there, if you feel like you're not worthy, okay, confess, repent, and move forward. Because as soon as you do that, he's removed your sins as far as the east is from the west. So it's your job to show up and fulfill the purpose that he has called you to do and listen to his voice along the way.
That's so good. I wrote all of that down. Oh, that is so good. Like when you said the enemy is logical, like I was just like, it brought back like every single time that like I would get pulled back. Like, I'm just trying to grow, I'm trying to do. And right now, like I think like, so just to kind of give you an idea. So whenever I was in that toxic relationship, I was 19, 20, 21 years old. And now I'm 28. And now I'm married to a wonderful husband, have a beautiful family, yada, yada. But now that I'm in this situation where I am no longer like surviving, like money wise, relationship wise, whatever. Yeah. And like I can I can kind of finally breathe. Then all this stuff creeps in. It's like, you don't deserve to be happy. Like, you had to pay your dues in order to have this beautiful family. And then like, so I'm like going to therapy right now just to heal all the old stuff, and it starts creeping in. And then it's like, you're going to mess this up. You're going to do something to ruin this marriage. Like all these like thoughts are creeping in, relationship wise. And then in my business, it's imposter syndrome and comparison and just all of these other things, and like just like self-sabotage that's coming in. And it's like, okay, how can we tune all that out and just move on?
Yeah, and I don't think you're alone in those things. I've heard from so many people that these self-limiting beliefs are driving their behaviors. And that's what kind of starts that spiral of anxiety, maybe depression, or any of these things that can turn into life controlling issues. They all start with a lie. And then that turns into a lot more dangerous of a situation. So you're absolutely not alone in that. And I mean, that's the direct thing. That's the thing that the Lord speaks directly to, is restoration and wholeness and the fulfillment of his promises. Like that's what you're seeing in your life right now. And they're so unbelievable that it's like you are in the garden and the snake is like, yeah, this isn't real. Like,
Yeah.
no, this isn't real. Like, this
No,
isn't real.
like that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like how like I catch myself. I'm like, am I living in an alternate universe where like all my dreams come true? Is that happening right now? And like I catch myself and then I like spiral and it's like, well, like this is a part of your story. And then it's like, am I being greedy? Like all these thoughts like just come swarming in because I'm happy and I'm successful and like my version of success and like
Yeah.
relationships and health and like all this stuff. And that is so wild that
And then
that is all connected.
the Lord is kind of saying like, but isn't this what we talked about before? Isn't this what you had prayed for? Like this is you living in the fulfillment of my promises. Like,
Like, hello, this is
isn't
what
this
you
what we
asked
talked about?
for.
We already talked about this.
No, seriously, like, and my husband and I laugh because he had been in a toxic relationship before too. And whenever we finally found each other, like, and we kind of realized, like, okay, this is it, like, we're getting married and all that. We both said, like, I prayed for you, like, down to like the hair color, the eye color, like the personality, like just the way he looks, like the way that he acts, like even down to him putting his arm around me at church, like so specific, like things that are crazy that I prayed about, like are literally happened. And I love how you said like God's like, this is what we talked about, Jordan. Like, hello,
Yeah.
like, here we go. Like, no need to ask questions. Like, you asked me for this, and I provided. Here you go.
This is where you glorify me.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my goodness, I love that so much. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, I thought about it a little bit ago, was I was actually just recently asked to speak at my church at a young adult. They have like a young adults ministry on Tuesday nights. And our pastor asked me to speak because I told her about my relationship story. And she was like, I would love for you to come speak to these young adults because no one in the church really talks about divorce or, leaving bad relationships. And no one really knows how to, leave those bad relationships, like without being like shame and guilt. And I was like, I don't even know what I would say. Like, I really don't have any like good knowledge. I just like the Lord just scooped me up out of it. I don't really have anything like I don't have any like tangibles, no step-by-step guide of like how to leave this relationship. So what would you say, like, because you said people come to you about relationships, like what are some tips on like how to like scoop yourself out of that?
So I'm kind of in the boat of it's nearly impossible to, depending on how severe the situation is, to remove yourself by yourself. I didn't. I don't know anyone who has. But I can say that I've been a witness to tons of people who the only reason that they were able to get out is because they had someone walking next to them. So the advice is more to their village or community or friends, and saying like, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you need to make sure that this person feels safe with you. And it doesn't matter if they push you away, if they are being isolated. It doesn't matter if they're defending their abuser till to the death. They need to know that if something happens, you're going to be there. So I more speak to the friend as much as I can, but because every case is so different, it's hard to kind of give blanket advice.
Right.
But that's where I would start with the reintroducing yourself to the Lord, because then you'll start to understand your worth and your value. And then those red flags start to kind of pop up one by one. You start to be able to see clearly. Because ultimately, if you're in an abusive relationship, there's something that that person is saying to you or about you that you've already told yourself. So what they're saying feels more true,
Mm.
and it feels like concrete. Like this person has said something that I've thought about myself, and it's my biggest fear. And so I have to stay with them because they love me through this and no one else will. That's something that I've seen a lot. And so it's kind of, because every person's thing is different, it's identifying what this thing is and identifying that it's likely a lie. And how do you do that? Reintroducing yourself to the Lord.
Oh my gosh. Every time, like every little stretch that you talk, I'm like, what? Because like so for the reason I'm like, when you look back on your life and you're like, why was I in this situation? How did I get into this relationship? Like being able to look back, and all that I can gather is like I was very insecure. And whenever you said like the things that you say about yourself, like, or the things that these people are saying to you, you've already said to yourself. So it's like they're validating your worst
Mhm.
fears.
Yeah.
And then they make you see, they put you on a pedestal, and they're like, no one else will love you because of this but me.
Right. Right.
And then you're attached.
Hmm.
That, like, you just brought so much clarity to me. It's like, oh my gosh, because people, you're the hardest on yourself, and the words that you say to yourself are way worse than anything else, usually way worse than anything anybody else can say to you. But then whenever that person matches you in your worst thoughts and your worst I am statements and your negative cognition, then it like solidifies. Oh my gosh. I'm
Yeah.
like, whoo,
And then that's what makes you feel
powerful.
stuck. It feels concrete. So you feel just stuck. You're like, yeah, no one else is going to
Like,
love me. So
you're
I'm
right. I am
going to just sit
ugly. I
here.
am fat. I am stupid. Yeah, like I am whatever. Like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, that is so good. I want to kind of like pivot a little bit to more of like your business side, because this is the Empire
Hmm.
Builder podcast. So I love to like showcase how women have built careers based on things that they're passionate about.
Hmm.
Because so many people that follow me just like they're kind of like stuck, and they're working 9 to 5 or they're stay-at-home moms, and they just don't see how they can make money doing things that they're actually passionate about. I think it's mainly because like our generation, like our parents are like, photography is a hobby, like go get a real job. So how did you like build an income from helping people do like find their identity in Christ?
Yeah. So as an Enneagram 2, I would love to do everything for free. Like literally
Yes,
everything. I
yes,
would,
and you can't.
yeah, that would be great. But I physically cannot. It's not, you kind of realize whenever you start to do too many things for free that you start feeling taken advantage of, then you start to resent the work. So before that even happens, at that point you know that you're valuable. If you start to kind of get to that point, okay, there's something here. It started out, I'm trying to think like way back. It started out with me speaking, and I would go to schools or churches and give a sermon. And I did 10 gigs for free. And then from that point on, I charged. So after 10, I could have references. I had, quotes from people. I had demo reel. I had everything that I needed to be able to move forward and be like, okay, this is proof of my value. Now, this is how much I charge. And then every year I increased. And from speaking, kind of grew maybe writing or brand deals or coaching, mainly because coaching just kind of happened on its own. Well, it's called online mentoring. It's not really like life coach necessarily. It's just mentoring and walking with people through different situations. But um, that kind of just birthed out of people asking me so many questions in my DMs. And I was like, I can't, I can't manage it. I want to, but the problem is that they weren't like one-off questions. It's not like, where'd you get your earrings? It's like, what is the depths of my, listen to the depths of my soul and give me advice.
You're like,
And I still get that a lot, but I'm also like, hey, I have a resource for you for this specific thing, because it's more than a DM. This is a bigger conversation. It's not therapy, but I can walk with you through some of the things that I learned, and it's valuable information. And I know that because I paid for someone else to walk me through some things, and that's kind of how it built off of each other. And then from online mentoring, the next step is, okay, I'm recognizing that the first month of mentoring almost all the time is rediscovering our identity. Okay, I'm turning that into an online course that you can do on your own, passive income for me, but it's not me repeating the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And
yes.
it's cheaper than diving into online mentoring. So if there's something super, super specific that we want to go over, then yeah, let's talk online mentoring. But if you are just talking about rediscovering your identity, here it is in a package that you can kind of self-pace. You can work on your own, and it's cheaper than online mentoring because it's not face-to-face.
One-on-one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at now with different revenue streams. I can't remember how many I have, but I'm trying to get up to 7.
Yes, me too. That's awesome, girl. Well, I preach about this all the time, but I think sometimes people don't understand that you can monetize your expertise.
Yeah.
And then I would do it, or I wanted to do it for free, but you can only do that for so long before you're working for free. And like you said, getting resentful and just like, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
And figuring out when that spark is. But I loved how you said that you did 10 speeches for free. I feel like that, like, to relate that to somebody else who's not speaking somewhere, like, you need to kind of build up your credibility, get some some coaching sessions under your belt, or help. Like for me, for example, I have courses on Instagram, so I've like worked with people one-on-one for free to figure out what their questions are and what they struggle with, and then turn that into courses for other people.
Yeah.
And people think that course creation is like super hard. Like, guys, you can record it on a Zoom and then upload it into a Teachable or Kajabi, or I'm sure there's Udemy. There's all kinds of stuff out there that you can do to start getting passive income in different ways. So thank you for sharing that. Is there how can everybody find you? Like, what is the best way to work with you right now?
Yeah, probably Instagram is where I hang out the most. I'm at Ainsley B on Instagram. If you're super into the Enneagram, almost all of my Enneagram clients come from TikTok.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have an Enneagram TikTok. It's called Enneagram and Chill on there. I did not think it was going to be a thing, but it turned into a thing, and I may have to rebrand it. I wish I had thought about it from the beginning. I didn't think about it as like, oh yeah, this is going to run my business. But it has.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, I guess Enneagram part is coaching. The online mentoring is the identity work. So I have a little bit of both. So TikTok is Enneagram and Chill. Instagram is Ainsley B. And my website has whatever other information on there at AinsleyBritton.com.
Thank you, girl. One other thing I wanted to ask you, whenever you said about your website, do you have people that help you?
So I have a podcast editor who solely does that. And every now and then I'll have a virtual assistant, but I don't at the moment. Every now and then I'll have an intern, but I do not at the moment. So I only have one team member currently, but during the school year from like August to uh, whatever May, I may have an intern and a virtual assistant. It depends on the budget and what we need to get done. The intern always, is a college student and they want the experience and they get class credit. So the intern I
Gotcha.
don't pay. The virtual assistant I do pay.
Awesome. That's so helpful. That we have a retreat coming up, and that's one of the big questions is like, how do you do all of this like by yourself? And I was like, you
Hmm.
don't. Like, you get help. Like,
Yeah,
you can.
yeah, and I kind of I hold off on things that I can give to the VA. So I kind of build things up for them versus having them always on payroll.
I like
Because
that idea.
self-employment is a fluctuating budget. So
Hmm.
I'm like, I can't have you on nonstop other than my podcast editor, but she's one of my closest friends. So that also helps. But she just happens to be insanely talented. But I mean, I pay her more than anyone because of the value that she brings to me. And anyway, but other people, I mean, summer is typically not as lucrative for me, so I don't have anyone in the summer.
Yeah, I love that flexibility. Like, it doesn't have to be anything like anybody else. Like, it can just be what you can afford for the moment. Or if like you're working on a project, you can bring in more people, and
Hmm.
you don't necessarily have to hire like a full blown W-2 employee. You can just get like a virtual assistant or an intern.
Yeah,
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
But I will have all of your resources and links in the show notes. Thank you so much, Ansley, for being on the
cool.
podcast today.
Thank you.